Welcome to the Influencer Show with your host, Ben Salmi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influencer Show, where I interview people who can help influence the way you live life in a number of different ways. I'm your host, C7, and today we have a very, very special guest with us. So if you'd like to introduce yourself to the listeners and let them know a little bit about you.
Loving the energy, Sean. Loving it. My name's Cheryl Chapman. I am the founder, or co-founder actually, of the Find Your Why Foundation and the author of the book Find Your Why to Become Freaking Awesome.
That is great. And why don't you tell the listeners why you do what you do?
The reason why I do what I do is that back in 2011, I was at a crossroads. I don't know if you've ever been at a crossroads in your life where you have a choice to make. Do you go left? Do you go right? And I was actually blindfolded because I couldn't even see that there was a choice at that time. I was 48 years old, not very happy, drank a bit too much, spent a lot of money on shoes and holidays and just tried to do loads of things to make my life feel better. And so, yeah, I was at a midlife crisis, as they call it. So now, of course, we like to call it a midlife opportunity. And so that's why I do what I do. I help people who are on the second half of their life, usually, not exclusively that age group, but that tends to be the people that I resonate with the most or resonates with me. Just to help them to find, what they're freaking awesome at, what they want to do in the second half of their life, and just to help them get over some blocks and barriers that they might have that's potentially stopping them. Give them clarity and confidence to move forward. That's why I do what I do, because I would have loved for someone to have helped me back in the day. And they did, just a little bit later than I would have liked, ideally.
That is absolutely amazing. That's a truly inspirational story. Could you share with the listeners what then motivated you to then help others to change where they live their lives to be better?
Yeah, I don't know if this happens with a lot of the people that are listening. Look, no matter what age you are, whether or not, you're young and you're just starting out, or you feel like you're a little bit old and you've missed the bus. The reality is that I thought I was the only person who felt the way that I did. I thought everybody else was all right. There's that saying, isn't it? The grass is always greener on the other side, everybody else's life looks amazing, but you don't really know what goes on behind closed doors. So what I realised is that as I started to talk to people and I was very lucky to have done some public speaking. I got the opportunity to stand on a stage quite on a regular basis. And people would come up to me and they'll go, "Oh my God, you're really inspirational." And I'd be like looking behind to see who they were talking to, because I'm just like, me. I'm just some old bird from Barnsley. That's the northern term, right? For the people who are in the south, that means I'm just an old lady from a place called Barnsley. So I couldn't get it. I didn't understand it. And at the same time, what I realized was that it's because people were stuck like I was. So we were just the same. We were looking for something, we didn't know what we were looking for. And because I'd sort of started to move in the direction of what I really wanted, I guess that inspired others. And so that was very humbling, really, to think that just because I'd taken maybe one or two steps, out of the comfort zone into, a new possible place, people were inspired by me. That wasn't really what my plan was. My plan was to just share my story and hope that would help me at the time, if I'm really honest, because I like accountability, shall we say. So I'd given up drinking, for example, but I thought the more I spoke about that, the more it was actually going to help me, because I couldn't then be seen sitting in the pub drinking if I'd already said I wasn't drinking anymore, if that makes sense. But that sort of appeared to inspire people, so I just did a little bit more.
That is great, because then as a result of you then trying to overcome and just trying to step out of your comfort zone, you was then able to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you recognize people, in you. So, if you remember, Trayshawn, when we first met, when you were about this big tall, and you came to one of the speaking events that we were at, and, there you were, looking down at the floor, didn't want to look at anybody. And actually, I think the reason why I resonated with you is that's how I felt when I first started speaking. So we can only ever come from a place of knowing, what we've experienced in our lives. So I could see that, I knew for a minute, you were too trendy to be really quiet. But in that environment, that wasn't your natural environment. Of course, there was this I don't really know if I want to be here surrounded by all these adults. And so the connection that we made was that I'd heard you talking about Arsenal Football Club, of course. So I said, oh, who was it? Who is it that you support? Is it Liverpool? And you immediately looked at me.
Yeah.
But I knew that that's what had worked for me, so I could then share that with you. So you know, I don't know who did that with me originally. If I did, I could give them the credit. But you know, it's like kind of sometimes you have to be woken up, you know, and that's exactly what kind of happened in that environment. And so you know, that's how we became really good friends. You know, friends of the family and or part of the family. Really, that's how I feel. So yeah, it is. What happens to you in life is then what you can then share with other people, which is I'm sure what you do as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that as a result of then like going through them hardships and all of that, then you're then able to resonate with people on levels which if you were talking about things which you haven't experienced, you wouldn't be able to resonate on really.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you know, and where I am now, I feel really, really blessed. You know, I live in a beautiful space, and you know, you've been here. You know, I can bring people here. You know, I do what I love. You know, life is good even within the lockdown and the constraints of where we are right now in the world. And yet, you know, it's not too far. You know, not a long time ago that I can remember. You know, walking around a supermarket with £6.74 in my purse. You know, having to feed, you know, me and somebody else for a week. And those memories are still quite real, you know, quite raw, really. And I suppose, and it's not just about the money, but you know, I don't want to be in a situation where you know I'm in that place of lack. And at the same time, I now know when I look back that was, you know, totally manifested by me. You know, I was very much a victim. Oh, why is this happening to me? You know, but I didn't know any different. So if I can help somebody else avoid that pain that I went through, then that's really why I do what I do. But I can definitely remember, you know, the downs as well as the ups.
That is great. And could you share with us what you would say was the biggest influence in your life that you wish you had known sooner?
Oh, this is a. I think the main thing is that I was. Can I have two? Because I'm going to be greedy.
Yeah.
So one was when Andy Harrington said to me, I was in the audience at the Troxy, sitting on the front row, and he looked and he said, "If you were to die tomorrow, who would mourn your loss?" And I remember joking with the girl next to me, saying, "Oh, I've got about 43 friends on Facebook." And I suppose that moment when he then looked back at me again and said, if that number's small, it meant you led a life of small influence. That would be the first time that I was aware that there was something that meant something to me. I didn't know what it was at the time. And now, of course, when I look back, I go, oh, that's my need for significance. I'd never heard of Tony Robbins, so I didn't know about all these human needs and things like that. But it wasn't really like, oh, look at me. It's more for the fact that I didn't want to have lived on this planet and not made any positive influence on anything. You know, like I didn't want to just have died and, oh, well, you know, there you go. There's another human gone. So there was that. And then also with my good friend Marion Bevington, who's the co-creator of the Find Your Why, when she did some work with me and we realised that I was still living by the rules that my mother had given me when I was 5 years old. And if I'd known about this significance, as in, you know, I want to help people and I want to support people and I want to know that what I did mattered, I think I would have moved quicker into this space. And also, if I'd realised that I didn't have to be running my life according to some rules that were set when I was 5, that could have potentially changed me as well. But that said, Trayshawn, I actually don't regret anything. So I think everything's, you know, given to us for a reason.
Yeah.
But those were quite monumental sort of light bulb moments, if you like, that I would share with anybody else.
And that's actually really important because like many of us, we may have had that one occasion where something might have happened and it had like a detrimental effect on us that's actually lasted a lifetime. And it's just had an imprint on us in a way that we're then unable to seem to get over. So then not only does it impact our lives, but it also impacts like just how we think, really.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and the minute that you ever hear yourself, oh, why does this always happen to me? Or, you know, nobody ever, you know, those words, never, ever, always, this always happens to me. Then, you know, we can recognize, and I can recognize now that was coming from this kind of victim mentality. You know, look, you know, yes, people can say things to you, they can do things to you, but ultimately nobody has the control of how you deal with those things. That's really down to you. And I think just having that knowledge is really important. Otherwise, you just let life happen to you. So you're right. Yeah, it doesn't matter what happens to you, good or bad. You can really take from that.
And talking about that, could you then share some advice for ways how people can stay motivated during moments of crisis?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because here we are at the minute with no kind of control. But I don't like the word but usually comes before. Anyway, I like to use the word and. Here we are in a situation where we don't have too much control about what's going on outside of us. And even in terms of what we can do, in a fairly open society, shall we say. However, you can still control what goes on inside of you. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you don't have any itchy or scratchy moments, as I call them, or that you might not react, particularly when, I know you've got a big family and we've got a big family here, living together, and everybody's got different ideas and, so you can go, I want to do that. But ultimately, just be mindful of how you are. What is it that is potentially upsetting you, shall we say, or doesn't correspond with what you thought was going to happen, and be mindful and become very curious, as Marion would say. Become very curious about how you feel in any moment, because actually you can only control what's going on inside of you, not outside. So in moments of crisis where you feel things are going on that you can't control, you can control what's going on inside you, as in how you respond to things. Even if it's that's interesting because someone says something that you really don't agree with, you can just go, that's interesting. Wow, how fascinating that person has that strong a view about, X, Y, or Z. When my view is completely different, because that changes the energy, I think.
Definitely. I think that just having that, just stepping back for a second and just analyzing how can I act and things like that just helps really.
Yeah, it does. And also take a deep breath in before you say something. Otherwise, what you say might be something you don't want to. You don't want to be remembered for, right? Yeah.
Could you then share with us what is your passion?
Well, my passion is helping others find their why. And so, what do I mean by why? I mean their purpose. I mean the reason why you're on this planet. I do have a description which is slightly rude, which is, we're not here to just eat, I'll change the word, poo and die. It's part of the plan, right? Yeah, we have to go through the motions, pardon the expression. But I do believe that we're here to do something that isn't just exist. It's to enjoy, it's to grow. I don't know what that is for each individual person. And I do think that we're here to be happy and enjoy our life, unless someone specifically chose to come here to suffer, but that may be the choice, I don't know. So I help people to help them to find their why, their passion, their purpose, the reason why they're on the planet, so that they can have a full experience, really.
That is absolutely amazing. Yeah. Could you, let's say that you then had a megaphone and you could say one thing to the world that would have a lasting influence, what would it be and why?
Wake up! Wake up, yes, because if you stay asleep, there's a lot of people out in the world that are fast asleep walking around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault, because you don't know what you don't know. So if I could have a big megaphone that said wake up, I might just jolt people into going, hey, what's that? I think a lot of people, and I include myself here, in the past and still some days actually, are literally in a trance. Anybody knows this feeling. You'll know this feeling if you can drive a car. You'll know this feeling if you've watched a movie or you've been in the back of the car where suddenly you go, oh, hey, yeah. Because we've completely zoned out and not really experienced, what's been going on, or watched a movie and then thought, oh, is this real or a dream? I don't know what it is, but yeah, wake up and smell the coffee. So there is an alternative way. You don't have to let life happen to you. You are in control of how you feel and what you do. It doesn't matter what other people say or do. Inside, I believe we've got this inner compass, this inner desire, we know what that is deep down, but we get covered over with, everyday stuff. And I don't want this to sound as a judgment. However, there are some TV programs that if you watch the TV and you get lost in their pain, I guess it's designed to help you think that your pain isn't so bad. But if you wake up and realize that you can change that, that is possible, even if it is just the feeling inside, then that's what I would say. Wake up.
I think that's like really important, because many of like people nowadays, they're then like running on like a so-called autopilot. They do the same things every now and then, expecting different results. But it's actually about like changing your habits, changing the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, so that then you're then able to attract different things into your life.
Yeah, 100%. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about that. He said, most people sleep on the same side of the bed. They get up in the morning, they have their routine. You might go to the loo first or brush your teeth first, but they have the same routine every single day. They wake up with the same thoughts every day, and then they wonder why their life is exactly the same as it was the day before, and they don't feel, fulfilled. Now, if you feel fulfilled, brushing your teeth, sleeping on the same side of the bed, then of course that's your choice, right? However, if you make some changes, then that's when, something has to be different for a change. You're absolutely right.
Definitely. And I really do agree with that. And I really do urge that you listeners are then taking notes on what Cheryl has to share for us today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Not so much if you're not married, but when you're married, or if you're living with somebody, and you go into the bedroom and you're on the opposite side of the bed from like normal, Mr. C's like that. Oh, we're changing the side of the bed again, are we? Because I'll do it, intermittently. No, just randomly, I'll do it. And at the same time, the first time I did it, it was really unusual. Your listeners can try this at home. Try and brush your teeth with the other hand that you would normally do. And if when you're putting your trousers on, or a top, if you always put your right leg in, just put your left leg in, for a few days, and then change it up again. Wear your watch on a different wrist. All of these things make you more aware of what you're doing rather than it being on autopilot. That's the idea behind this.
Definitely. I really do urge that you listeners do give it a try. So, what advice would you give to those? So let's say that someone's had a brand new idea and they think it's the so-called £1 million idea. What advice would you give to them at a time like this?
Oh, that's an interesting one, because it's interesting that I don't feel like I've created a product, and yet I have, because I've my book is a product, and the process that we take people through is a product, and yet at the same time that I always think like a £1 million idea is a thing. Do you know what I mean? As in like a widget, an iPhone, a computer, or something like that. So It's a really good question. My belief is that if you have a product or a service that you think is the next best thing, is to first of all see if there is a gap in the market. This is a quote that was given to me once. I'm not quite sure by who, but it was great. It's a great analogy. Is there a gap in the market? In other words, is this something that could go to market, or are there another 101 million ideas out there that are exactly the same? And then the second piece of advice, which is crucial, is there a market in the gap? So in other words, do people want and need what you've got? And in order to be able to do that, you must know your clients. Who is it that you want to serve with this product, this service, this idea, whatever that is? Because if they need it and you've got it and there is a gap in the market, then of course that's a really great place to start. So that would be where I start. The second bit is I would then try and find somebody who is already knowledgeable in that area, and just go and find out about that. Find out about them and what they do. It's really interesting. If you offer to go for coffee, or as you're doing, Trey, offer to, do you want to come on an interview? That's great, brilliant. I can talk to you about what I know. I don't know everything. So that's what I would do. Once you've got this idea and there's a market and that there's a gap, then go and speak to some other people that are in that same kind of area and get them to give you some hints about what to do. Definitely 100%. That's what I think.
Totally, I definitely agree with that. It's about then piecing together who you need to connect with, things you need to do, and then actually going forth and doing it.
Yeah, that's right, 100%. Yeah, because you can only learn from you learn from other people. They might even tell you what mistakes not to do because they made loads, right? That'd be brilliant. How important that would be.
Definitely, because then as a result of them like going on that journey, they're then able to like guide you away from them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What is like the biggest issue or problem that you're then aiming to solve as an influencer in your own industry?
Sorry, Trey, just ask me that question again, please.
Okay. What is the biggest like issue or problem that you're then aiming to solve as an influencer in your own industry?
Okay, yes, sorry, I got you this time. I just lost you before. So basically, I'm helping people to understand that there is an alternative way to live. Particularly in the second half of your life, but it goes, the kind of like the general rules, if you like, or the general strategies for life are the same for whether or not you're, like 12, or 92, really. And that is the fact that you do have a choice in your life. That you are the person who's in control of this vehicle that we call the body. And so when you know what really lights you up, then like life is easier. When you know who you were really born to be, then this is the time and place to learn about it right now, not when it's too late, when you're on your way out. And so I believe that there are 5 different types of people in the world, and when you know which of those 5 types of people you are, your life can be much easier, because otherwise it's like trying to push water up a hill. It's just too problematic, right? We try to do everything that everybody else wants us to do. We try to live a life everybody else wants us to do. We try to please other people. And so when you really know who you are and you know why you're here, that just makes it so much better. And that's the biggest problem I've got, is that people don't know about this. So it's kind of like, if people don't know about it, they can perhaps go, oh, what's all this? Doesn't, I don't know about this. Can it be real? So they question and they doubt. They're a bit cynical, if you like. And so I'm not here to try and help everybody, although I have a big target, because I want to help 10 million souls. That's really, that figure's just for me to get me out of bed every day, just so you know. And at the same time, I want to help as many people as once. That's not English. I want to help as many people who are open to be helped and supported and guided. If someone doesn't want to change, there's no point in trying to change somebody if they don't want to change, right?
Yeah. And I think that's like one thing that many coaches and like mentors, they often struggle to get over the fact that, because like, yeah, you might have like this course that can potentially like change this person's life for the better. But then if they're not open to actually experience that change and actually change things in their life to then live a better live a better lifestyle, then it's about like acknowledging the fact and just like saying like, I'm here if you choose to do so, and not dwelling on the matter really.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And particularly the genetic blueprint that I am, I'm what's called an architect. And my whole strategy is that I have to wait for the invitation. So, back in the day before I knew about this, I can see things. I don't mean I see dead people. I don't mean quite like that. But I mean, I see things as in I can see what might help somebody. I didn't realize, but it is just one of those gifts. I thought everybody could see what I could see, and they don't always. And so if I can see something, I go, oh, what you need to do is this. And the person's going, I never asked you for any help or advice. So immediately you're kind of, you're met with a block. And quite frankly, I understand, because if someone came towards me and said, say what you need to do, I'd be like, who are you, right? So I now know that I can say, oh, I have an idea. I don't know if this would be of interest to you. And if somebody said yes, then I can share it. And if somebody says no, then I just have to walk away. That's my strategy, right? So you're right. People need to be open for what you have. Otherwise, it's really like a waste of everybody's time, right?
Definitely, I totally agree with that. And could you share like what you would say was the like so-called pivotal point along your journey, and what did it teach you?
Yeah, there've been so many, Trey. We could probably spend like a whole day talking about the pivotal moments. Yeah, I've mentioned 2 of them already. So obviously when I went to see Andy, and when I did some work with Marion. And then for me, I think the next pivotal moment really would have been finding out the genetic blueprint that I am. The fact that I am an architect. I'm here to guide other people. I'm here to see the gaps, see the patterns, if you like. I believe that's why I'm a good therapist, and I also know why I can, create great stories for people. So if people want to change their story, And if they want to, as in the story they tell themselves that keep them potentially trapped, if they want to tell a story to their clients, about their product and service, I'm really great at being able to pull that information together. So when I knew about that, I was like, okay. And I know I'm all about community and I'm all about leadership, but in my own unique way. And some people will like me for that. I'm a bit like Marmite. So you either like me or you don't care for me so much. And that's okay. Because if you don't, if I'm not your type, then you'll go find somebody else that'll work for you. Do you know what I mean? So I guess the pivotal moment is to not try to be everything to everybody, because there's a great quote by Dieter von Teese. You can be the juiciest, ripest peach in the fruit bowl, and some people prefer apples. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can't be everything to everybody.
I think that's like one thing that many people are suffering with nowadays, just as a result of like social media and just technology and other things like that, how it's moving so fast, because they're then thinking like, how many likes will I get? Will they like this? What if I get a bad comment? And it's just about then simply like being content with who you are, and then you're then able to not only have an wider impact because of that authenticity, but then also then you're able to just like know that this is what I believe in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think it's it can be more difficult for the youngsters, because as you said, Trey, social media is all like, that's kind of how you live your life, like totally. I mean, and it's the same for us oldies as well, by the way. And yeah, if anybody's listening and they've got a comment, where somebody's saying something, and they think, wow, where did that come from? Like I was only mentioning something. The big thing is to know, and I know you know this already, Trey, is that it's about them. That's not about you. That's something that's triggered them. And what I mean by triggered is they feel like they've been poked with a stick. It's something that's like really kind of like just got to them, and that will be nothing to do with you. It'll be something that's happened in their life previously. It's just reminded them of that situation.
Definitely, and I totally agree with that. So because like only like hurt people can hurt people, and the way that they then leave that comment, they have to be like, let's say that someone does leave a negative comment, they have to be feeling negative for them to then think and then post that, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're right. And angry people are hurt people. If you think about it, like if somebody's angry, that's not because they're happy and their life's content. Like there's something wrong, isn't there? And that will be, because they've been hurt in the past, maybe by somebody else who said that comment or wore that jacket, or there's just something that reminds them about a bad time potentially from either the quote you've used or the the words you've used. And it is nothing personal, but it does feel personal at the time. When somebody said something, you're like, whoa, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
What did I say? What did I do? Like I just posted something. I was just sharing something innocent.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. And if you had to like be another person for one day, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question, isn't it? I think I'd really like to be Oprah for a day. I don't know if that's like what everybody says when they're sort of my age. I'd just like to see what goes on. What goes on in her world. Yeah, Oprah. I think I would say I'd like to be Oprah. And the other one is Madonna, but that's just because I'd like to be thin for one day, like thinner, probably. What about you, Trey? Who would you like to be?
I've never actually been asked this, really. I think one person who I'd like to be is Cristiano Ronaldo, just because like he's such a good player. Just to see, just like feel how much pressure he has on him to like perform well. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. Cool, like the answer.
Yeah. Sure. Is there anything that like maybe you've done in the past, and maybe now looking back on it, you may have wished that you've done it differently, or maybe even sooner? And what did it teach you?
Yeah, that's I don't really regret anything that I've done. I think you regret the things you didn't do. Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because it's kind of like the butterfly effect, So if anything had changed, then I probably wouldn't be the person that I am now. I mean, I wish I'd not eaten that those 14 ice creams in 1 week, stuff like that. And at the same time, like I did. So like, does it matter? Yeah, I don't really regret anything. I know that probably sounds a bit of a cliche, and people say that. But everything that I've ever done, you know, the good, the bad, the indifferent, you know, the really like terribly embarrassing things that I've said, or yeah, I mean, even being too drunk, you know what I mean, like to walk home. I don't look back on those things with fond memories, and at the same time, I know now, like, wow, you know, I think I've been sober for 5 years this year, in like next month, I think it is, and you know, I do not miss drinking at all. But having said that, if I hadn't been excessive in the drinking, I wouldn't
Yeah.
know what it's like to not drink, if that makes sense. You know, and I've been married before, and that didn't work out. But actually, the fact that that didn't work out then meant that I gained something. So there isn't really anything, nothing major really. I mean, I'd like to have moved into this house a little bit earlier because I just like it. But at the same time, we moved in at exactly the right time. So that's kind of where I am with that.
Yeah, I totally understand. It's about then simply like realizing that if that didn't happen or something like that, you wouldn't be at the point where you are today. And regardless of whether it did happen at that time, the lesson would have only come, if not in the future, or maybe even quicker, to then teach itself really. So it's about just simply being aware of the fact that this happened for a reason to simply bring me where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you met my lovely Aussie dog before he died. Although I do remember, as I was telling you that we had a dog, you and the Shay were like that. What? As we're driving outside my house, and I was like, oh dear, we're about 120 miles away from where you live. You can't go home now. You know, and he died a couple of years ago, and you know, I felt sad about that, and I wish that, you know, maybe I could have, because I took him to the vet, you know, so like, could I have waited a little bit longer? And at the same time, you know, the fact that his passing happened meant that we could move into this house, because obviously there's another dog here, and you know, we didn't want them to be arguing. So even in sad times, you know, there's a reason, there's a timing for everything. You know, just like there's a timing for us as human beings, without getting a bit morbid, you know what I mean? But you know, there is a time and a place for everything, and so there's a, you know, without an up, there's not a down, and without an in, there's not an out, and without sadness, there isn't happiness, you know. So yeah, I don't regret too much.
Yeah, I totally agree with that really. Yeah. And what advice would you like give to your younger self?
My younger self would be, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And I suppose it would be disingenuous if I didn't say to her, you are freaking awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
You are freaking awesome. We're all freaking awesome. We're all uniquely, amazingly us. And don't go and change what you think you have to change. And at the same time, I don't know if she would even understand what that meant. You know, yeah, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right, and you are freaking awesome. She'd probably think I'm swearing at her if she was
And I think that's like really important, but people tend to like often like overlook it or misunderstand the whole concept, because like when they hear the word like you're okay or just like you're amazing, they often get caught up in like, oh, he's just saying it to make me feel good. But it's actually like the reason why they actually think that is because like things like social media, they see like all these like different influencers posting things, and they're like, oh, I wish I was like her, blah blah blah. But it's about then asking yourself like, what is the story behind the story? How did they get to where they are? And am I willing to do the same?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, you know, we are absolutely capable of anything. And you mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. Look, you know, okay, there's a bit of luck involved, you know, being at the right place at the right time to be spotted by the scout, you know what I mean, or whatever that is. And at the same time, you know, nobody gets to that level of professionalism without having, yes, some talent, natural talent, but a hell of a lot of sweat. Do you know what I mean? Like a hell of a lot of
Yeah.
practicing. You know, and it has to be done. And if you want to do it, then you'll do it. And if you don't, that's okay. If you don't want it, then don't pretend you want it. You know what I mean? Don't pretend that you want to be like somebody else if you're quite happy being yourself. I mean, you should always be yourself, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, you know, don't look at somebody else and go, oh, I wish I had their life. You can't have their life. You're not them. Full stop. However, if you want to be a professional footballer, you know, then you've got to do the work, right? Otherwise, you can't just sit at home watching, you know, I don't know what you watch when you're a teenager, but watching some TV, you know, looking at that, going, oh, I wish I was a great footballer.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, I believe in manifestation. But I also say, AKA, move your ass. You know, like, don't be sitting there just praying, thinking that everything's going to come to you. You know, you have to get into action. And so if you want something, you've got to go out and you've got to do it. If you don't want it that bad, then it won't happen, quite frankly. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because then it's definitely about, like, yeah, it's good to like manifest and just like do like stuff like that, different exercises. But if you're not actually taking the action, then there's no way you're going to be able to attract it in your life. Like, yeah, it's good to be in like a positive mindset, but if you're not doing the steps that then take you in the right direction, there's no way that then you could then become what you want to, really.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to move in a direction, even if it's to find out it's not the right direction for you right now.
Yeah. And could you share some advice with those who, let's say, they've set up either like a new business or they're just trying something new for the first time and they're already starting to give up?
Okay, well, that's interesting, isn't it? So I have a little technique, and it's one that Marion shared with me, which is about body testing. You can do it when you're sitting down, and you can say to yourself, is this the right thing for me to do right now? And you'll notice in your body that something will change. Maybe your belly moves out a little bit, or maybe it moves back in a little bit. So you can say, show me yes, and you'll get a movement in the body. So you have to be quite still and just go, is this the right thing? So first of all, you have to know what a yes looks like and what a no looks like. So show me yes. So if I do show me yes, my belly gets bigger, like this. Yeah. And if I say show me no, my belly just kind of comes in a little bit like that. So I don't know if you have a yes or a no, Trayshawn. If you just go show me yes, what does that look like for you? You'll know how that feels in the body. And then show me yes, show me no. Yeah, you get a difference.
Yeah.
So do you see you feel the difference? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So somebody can say, is this the right thing for me to do right now? Once you know what the yes looks like or feels like, and once you know what the no feels like, then you can go, is this the right thing for me to do right now? And it may be a no. And in that case, that's okay. You know, you can put it down and you can go and do something else, but then test again later on. And if you get a yes, then it's like, okay, this is just because the mind doesn't like this because it thinks something might happen if we do something new. So let's keep going. And I always used to set my alarm for about 17 minutes. And I'd say, I'm going to do this for the next 17 minutes. And then I would carry on doing something. And then I'll go, and then I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to have a cup of tea, or I'm going to reward myself, or whatever it is. And then if I was in the moment, you know, like writing the book, you know what it's like to write books, right? You know, like you have to be like pretty on it, otherwise it doesn't come naturally. So like, I'll do it for 70 minutes. And then if I'm halfway through a chapter, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to finish this chapter.
Yeah.
Because, you know, again, Steve Peters in the Chimp Paradox, he talks about this, you know, keep the monkey brain busy whilst you want to get on with doing things, because it's going to try and keep you safe by going, let's just keep doing what we've always done because we're still alive. So let's not be changing anything, right? So yeah, I would do that. So do a test, you know, is this the right thing for me to do right now? Because it might just not be. Then I would use like a little timer to do something. And the main thing is to remember why you started. You know, I have challenging days, you know, like even with what I love doing. But if I go, why do I do what I do? And this is where, you know, find your why comes in. Why do I do what I do? I do it because I want to help 10 million other people. Now, will I ever get to help 10 million people? I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because it's almost like every morning, like Groundhog Day, I reset it to 10 million because that's what gets me out of bed. I can snooze the alarm for 5 minutes. I can snooze the alarm for 10 minutes. But after that, I'm like, I really need to get up now because I've got some people to go and serve.
Yeah.
So remind yourself why you started it in the first place. It can get a little bit challenging at times, of course.
Definitely. Okay, so lastly, where can people find you if they'd like to find out about any upcoming things you may have?
Okay, so they can go to two places, actually. They can go to cheryl-chapman.com, or they can go to findyourwhyfoundation.com, or just Google Cheryl Chapman.
Thank you so much. And I'd really urge you listeners to go and check out Cheryl. It's absolutely amazing. And I'd like to thank you for coming on the Influence Show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Trayshawn. I'm really, really pleased and blessed that you're in my life and that you have invited me here today to listen to to share with your listeners. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really did enjoy it.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank you listeners for tuning in today. And if you guys would like to have the chance to be featured on the Influencer Show, be sure to email. The email is going to be popping up on the screen. And I hope you guys have a great day. That's it from me. Bye.